Episode 1. From the moment we are born, none of us truly know what our future holds. But for witches, it is an entirely different story. In a peaceful forest, our protagonist suddenly brings a tub of laundry out to wash. Just because of a single piece of cloth, Coco has polluted the water source. After finishing the laundry, she gathers her things and explains to a nearby deer, "This stream will be back to normal soon because it's been enchanted." Sure enough, as soon as Coco steps onto the bank, the water becomes crystal clear again. The deer nearby can drink freely without a single worry. Every time she witnesses such beauty, Coco can't help but think how wonderful magic is. In this world filled with wonders, only witches can cast spells. Ordinary people like Coco can only be the recipients of it. Being born a witch is considered a great stroke of luck. Coco isn't one of them, so she can only sit and daydream. Occasionally, she gets excited and tries to chant spells to turn towels into flying capes. As a result, they get swept away by the wind, and she has to scramble after them. By chance, she notices a flying carriage landing right in front of her house. Excitedly, she puts the towel back and rushes downstairs. But because she was in such a hurry, the young girl accidentally bumps into a guest. Seeing Coco's timid apology, he graciously lets it go. Then, he quietly observes 3 women competing to pick out fabrics. Coco quickly realizes they are the guests who arrived in the carriage. However, this polite young man is different. He came looking for smoke-colored fabric. Seeing how busy the household is, he waits patiently for a moment. Hearing this, Coco offers to take the guests' measurements herself. Her main goal is to earn points with her mother so she can go see the flying carriage. "I promise I'll just watch, I won't touch anything." Not wanting to disappoint her daughter, the mother reluctantly agrees, on the condition that she finishes her work early. Hearing this, Coco jumps for joy and immediately gets to work. After receiving the design from the guest, Coco fetches the roll of smoke-colored fabric and begins measuring. She carefully uses her ruler and marks the lines with precision. Taking a deep breath, she draws a perfectly straight line. Finally, she shears through the line with a clean, neat cut. Coco's intense focus leaves the guest deeply impressed. The fabric is cut neatly and decisively. The result is precise and meticulous. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it magic. Coco bashfully declines the compliment, as magic is something mysterious, precious, and beautiful. And above all, it is sacred. Coco's love for magic began during a festival at a castle long ago. In a secluded spot, she met a masked wizard. Seeing that innocent Coco didn't know what magic was, he explained that magic is a miracle that brings color to the world. It could be a flying carriage in the sky, an eternal stream where the water is always clear, or even pebbles that glow when you step on them. Coco found that magic so shimmering and enchanting that she fell in love with it. She excitedly spent her money on a magic book and showed it to her mother. She rambled on about that encounter and said she wanted to be a witch when she grew up. However, that dream was quickly crushed by her mother. Coco cannot be a witch if she wasn't born with magic. Ordinary people simply don't have the ability to become witches. In response, the little girl insisted she did have magic, because the roads lit up the moment she stepped on them. Ironically, the light vanished the moment they left the castle. That proved Coco didn't have magic like she thought she did. The guest was curious to hear more to confirm something. But before he could speak, a loud noise erupted outside. Curious, Coco ran out to see that the carriage had overturned. She learned that 2 mischievous boys had crawled underneath it as a prank. They accidentally startled the horses, causing the carriage to flip. No amount of bowing and apologizing could fix this situation now. If the flying carriage is broken, how can they go back? Besides, it was borrowed, so they're in big trouble with their father. The guest saw the damage wasn't too severe and offered to help. Putting on his hat, he introduced himself, "I am the wizard, Kifri." Relieved, everyone asked for his assistance. They thanked the wizard profusely. Excitedly, Coco asked her mother to let him use their workshop. She hoped to see him use magic to repair the carriage. Unfortunately, Coco was told to stay outside and keep watch so no one could see inside. She was disappointed. Why couldn't she go in and watch? There are many types of magic in this world that we don't know how to use. Only witches know those secret arts. Suddenly, she spotted the 2 boys from earlier sneaking toward the house. Even after being caught, they refused to leave. Seeing how stubborn they were, Coco decided to take a peek as well. She nervously opened the window, but it was completely covered. She could only sadly accept the reality that there was nothing she could do. Just then, a towel flew right into her. Coco suddenly remembered she hadn't closed the upstairs door. She sneaked inside, picked up her book, and wrestled with her conscience. In the end, her curiosity won out, and she peeked through. She was instantly mesmerized by Kifri's drawings. He was drawing magic with a pen, not using a wand like Coco had always imagined. Magic isn't a spoken incantation, it's something drawn. Coco was so engrossed that she almost forgot her duty to keep watch. Luckily, she ran back outside just in time and wasn't caught. After the carriage repairs were finished, Coco and her mother said their goodbyes to Kifri that afternoon. At first, her mother thought Coco would insist on going with the wizard. To her surprise, the girl was more well-behaved than expected. Having lost her husband to illness, the mother didn't want to be apart from her daughter at all. Coco had never even considered leaving. She didn't want to leave her mother all alone. She still wanted to stay by her side and share meals with her. Life was simple, but incredibly happy. That night, before returning to her room, the mother started to say something to her daughter, but then stopped. Coco didn't question it and simply wished her mother good night. Inside, she took a deep breath and took out her tools to study. The magic wand was actually a pen. And the gem on top was an ink reservoir. Coco wouldn't leave her mother, but she definitely had to try this. She focused on drawing scribbles on the paper, only to find they had no effect. No miracle occurred. However, magic finally happened the moment a drop of ink fell. It connected the lines and completed the magic circle. It created a beautiful firework display that made Coco overjoyed. She danced happily around the room, then scolded herself. Telling herself she'd play just one more time, she sat back down to draw. Deep in the forest, Kifri couldn't sleep after hearing Coco's story. Something seemed wrong about the book with the drawings the girl had. In her excitement, Coco almost burned down the room with a fire spell. Luckily, she put it out in time, or it would have been a disaster. She quickly realized that larger drawings held more power than smaller ones. The ones drawn carefully lasted longer than the sloppy ones. After some thought, Coco had the idea to trace the lines in the book. She meticulously traced over the paper, unaware of the danger. By the time Kifri arrived to stop her, it was too late. The spell had been activated, so he could only grab her and fly outside. He repeatedly asked what magic she had drawn, but Coco had no idea. "I just drew the pictures in the book." Before long, the house was encased in stone. Not realizing what was happening, her mother became a victim as well. She was completely swallowed up right before her daughter's eyes. Coco's attempts to save her were futile because it was forbidden magic. Despite this, the girl wouldn't listen and tried to rush back into danger. Kifri had to struggle to pull the stubborn girl away. It's natural Coco didn't know, magic is kept secret to prevent things like this. With special ink and predefined seals, anyone can cast a spell. Since she learned the ultimate secret of witches, Kifri was forced to erase her memory. But realizing Coco might have memorized the entire book, Kifri changed his mind and asked if she remembered what the book looked like. Coco nodded, saying she remembered the seals inside very clearly. "If I find a book like that, can you save my mother?" The girl earnestly begged the wizard not to erase her memories. She was willing to do anything to save her mother. Kifri accepted her request on the condition that Coco keeps the secret. At the same time, she must join the ranks of those who keep the secret to retain her memories. In other words, from now on, she will become a witch. Coincidentally, that was exactly what Coco had always dreamed of. Episode 2. Upon waking up, Coco found herself in a carriage with a wizard. She learned they were traveling to Kifri's atelier, where she would spend her time studying. Before leaving, Kifri had planted rosehip seeds around Coco's house. They would quickly grow into a hedge to ensure no one could get close. Seeing Coco still troubled by leaving her mother behind, Kifri comforted her and led her inside. "Don't blame yourself anymore. Starting today, this will be your new home." Then, he handed Coco a very strange-looking water pitcher. The girl was left puzzled, not knowing how to use it. She scrambled after him to ask, but he had already vanished. Suddenly, another girl spoke up, saying the spell wasn't anything scary. She friendly approached and explained it's called a vapor sphere. It's a spell that gathers moisture from the air into water. Just tilt the bottom slightly, and it'll flow out like a tap. Tesha is a cheerful girl who loves receiving thanks from others. She even thanks them in return, which makes Coco feel a bit awkward. Seeing this, Rick had advised the protagonist to just ignore her friend. If you don't want to get stuck, don't respond to her. Both are apprentice witches and students of Master Kifri. As for Coco, she was only there because of an incident. She wasn't an apprentice and had only learned about magic the day before. Hearing this, the other two became wary. Could Coco be some kind of chosen one? There's a rumor that if an outsider performs forbidden magic and doesn't have their memory erased, they become something extremely dangerous. Seeing Coco look frightened, Kifri interrupted the conversation. He told his two students to go study in their rooms and gave Coco some clothes to wear. After that, he took some time to explain everything to Coco. In ancient times, magic wasn't anything special. People only needed the right symbols and special ink to use it. Because it was so accessible, wars were constant. At that time, many terrible spells were created. Faced with this, the few good people left abandoned war and gathered as witches. They erased the knowledge of magic from the public and passed it only to apprentices to preserve the secret. Since then, people have always believed that only special individuals can use magic. If the truth were revealed, the wizarding world would immediately fall into chaos. Therefore, everyone is very careful about keeping the secret. The forbidden magic Coco used was one of the spells from the era of war. It is a harmful magic and has been banned since the day of the pact. Hearing this, Coco earnestly asked her master to teach her all the forbidden spells. She wanted to learn them so she could avoid them as much as possible. Understanding the fear the young girl carried, Kifri decided to reveal a few more things to her. There are many types of forbidden magic, such as spells that affect the human body or mind. For example, transformation or changing one's age, manipulating minds and emotions, inflicting injury or healing. Memory erasing magic is a rare exception. Magic is often tied to tools like carriages or lamps. The window Kifri was turning was one of them. He could use it to connect with windows of the same design. By changing the view, he let Coco admire the tower of books. Every book on magic is copied here as soon as it's written. Coco was eager to go there to find the forbidden book, but now wasn't the time. The tower of books is strictly guarded by a sea monster. A single flick of its tail is enough to create a massive wave. Furthermore, Coco needs to pass the librarian's trial. The tower is protected by 4 librarians. Only witches who pass the trial are allowed inside. To do that, Coco needs to learn. Knowing she was an eager child, Kifri was pleased and showed her the beauty of magic. The purpose of non-forbidden magic is to bring happiness to the world. This was exactly what Coco had always longed for. After the explanation, Master Kifri showed Coco to her room. Inside was an apprentice room for 2 people. Her private sleeping area was located under the stairs. He then went outside to contact someone, thanking them for accepting Coco as an apprentice. It was her first time seeing a witch's room, so she was a bit curious. But before she could touch anything, she was stopped by her senior, Agat. Agat was cold and had no intention of befriending Coco. Agat said she felt sorry for Coco's mother. Because of Coco's mistake, her mother can no longer be human. Since she was young, the senior had drawn seals until her hands were black with ink. She had to pass numerous exams to become a disciple. Therefore, Agat would never accept a mediocre, ignorant person. An outsider like you will never be worthy. But if you still want to prove yourself, we'll compete tomorrow. The tension was high when Tesha suddenly called them to eat. Expecting a feast as a welcome party for Coco, it turned out to be the usual bread and soup. Because of the rush, the master hadn't prepared anything special. Let's celebrate another time. Master Kifri is an amazing cook, so everyone loves his food. Even Coco, tasting it for the first time, was amazed by his skills. She praised him with wide eyes, but Kifri remained humble. He insisted it was only because the local vegetables were so good. That was Coco's first night sleeping in an unfamiliar bed. Naturally, she couldn't help but feel homesick and miss her mother. The next morning, Coco woke up early to think of a way to pass her senior's test. The problem was, she didn't know what the test would be. He approached to offer advice, startling his young student. There are many things about magic that books don't mention. Therefore, experience is the best way to learn it. To do that, Coco needed the tools to cast spells. The items her master gave her were top quality, and she was thrilled. Holding the magic pen made the young girl a bit nervous. But for her mother's sake, Coco was ready to face the challenge. However, after studying for a while, she was already exhausted. Though she struggled, at least she remembered a few basics. A magic seal has 3 components, the keystone in the center, the lines around it called arrows, and finally, the circle to close the seal. Keystones have attributes like water, fire, wind, and light. Arrows determine the type of spell as well as its size and direction. Once the outer circle is closed, the spell is cast. Remembering the basics after such a short time was impressive. Even so, Coco still couldn't cast a spell. She was too embarrassed to even show him. Kifri found it perfectly normal since she was just starting out. Wobbly, shaky lines are unavoidable at the beginning. The teacher carefully examined it and pointed out the flaw in the seal. If there's a gap in the circle, the spell won't activate. At this stage, beginners are like toddlers who can't stand steadily. But once she gets used to it, she'll be running around in no time. To activate the seal, Coco only needed to draw one more stroke to close it. She accidentally created a powerful jet of water that soaked her senior. On top of that, she ruined Agat's own spell, causing her to panic. But surprisingly, Agat didn't utter a single word of blame. Instead, she wanted to see Coco's sloppy seal. There was one arrow that was much longer than the others. It created too much pressure, causing the water to spray everywhere. Master Kifri praised his student for being so observant. He felt confident leaving Coco in Agat's care while he was away for a few days. I have to go to the Great Hall, so I'll be away for a few days. In the meantime, observe and learn from her. As soon as the teacher left the house, Coco realized with a chill that her senior still wanted to compete with her. She was so serious about it that it put a lot of pressure on the little girl. Episode 3. Amidst a torrential downpour, Master Kifri arrives at the Great Hall alone and is suddenly pulled down. It's been a long time since you last set foot on this seabed, hasn't it? With those words, the witch reaches out to help him up. Welcoming him, she then brings up his student. It has been 4 years since forbidden magic first appeared. Coco is the crucial lead they desperately need. Kifri denies it, saying, she isn't officially my apprentice yet. It's still too early for her to take the trial. Coco would surely be in danger if she started right now. Ironically, the young girl is currently being challenged by Agat. If she wants to become an apprentice, Coco must pass this test. The first trial is named the Crown's Consent. Coco is only allowed to bring 3 magical tools and materials. The young girl must climb the mountain peak alone to bring back a herb. The tools she receives are a guiding sphere and a water bubble for drinking. Before leaving, Coco asks for a pair of shoes. The kind Agat and the master used to fly. If you don't mind, could I borrow a pair? Seeing the girl's pleading, Agat can only sigh. She takes off her own shoes and lends them to Coco. Then, she hurries the girl through the door. The protagonist has only one chance to complete the test. Failure means she can't be an apprentice and must leave the atelier. Left alone in the forest, Coco feels a bit frightened. But she must do her best to pass this trial. Guided by the sphere, Coco must navigate a gloomy forest filled with obstacles. She keeps telling herself she can do it. After all, Agat passed this test when she was only 10. After some struggle, Coco finally emerges from the forest. Initially, she thought the test was easy, until she saw the data range. The herbs are located on rocks floating high in the sky. Just as things seem hopeless, Coco happens to see a bird flying by. She remembers the shoes she borrowed from Agat. Excitedly standing up to try them, she is knocked over by a gust of wind. Looking closely, she realizes the magic seal is split in 2. To use it, the seal must be closed perfectly. Just as Coco thought, she can fly with these shoes. But they are so hard to control that she falls flat on her face immediately. I really am just a newborn pony, like Master Kifri said. Despite the failure, Coco is happy because she actually flew. Just like the bird perched on the branch. Thanks to that, the young girl regains her confidence. Determined to master these shoes and fly to the peak. After every fall, Coco perseveres and stands back up. Practicing patiently until she gets the hang of it. Deep beneath the ocean lies the city of witches. Kifri is currently there to process the paperwork for his young student. He wouldn't have traveled this far if he lived in the hall. The witch knows he detests the hall, which is why he stays on the surface. She advises Kifri to keep a close eye on his student. Children that age are more curious than you think. It takes Coco an entire day to get used to balancing. But she still wobbles when trying to fly higher. Ultimately, she loses her balance and falls from a great height. Luckily, she manages to grab onto a nearby floating island. Suddenly, a strange white creature crawls right in front of her, giving her goosebumps. Startled, she lets go and falls straight toward a lake. Before impact, the girl manages to activate the shoes for a safe landing. The creature she just encountered is a small brushy. Though a bit unique, it's quite affectionate. After the fall, Coco's shoes are covered in mud. While diligently cleaning them, she realizes with horror that she accidentally wiped off the seal. She can't even redraw it because the ink has all spilled. Maybe I'm really doomed. At the same time, Tesha panics upon learning Coco is taking the trial. She only arrived a few days ago. Most people must complete a trial to even get here. If one can't pass a simple test, they shouldn't be an apprentice. Agat utterly despises those who cannot do what she does. There is no benefit in staying with such an outsider. Coco will certainly fail this trial. Because right now is when the data range floats the highest. Agat intentionally chose this day because she doesn't want Coco to join them. An outsider like that shouldn't be with us. Hearing this, Tesha slumps dejectedly over the table. Bored, she bites her spoon, having no appetite. Rick remains indifferent, getting more food. Because there is nothing she can do but wait for Master Kifri. Coco uses the tiny bit of ink left to trace over the seal. But the shoes are so wet that the ink keeps blurring. In desperation, the girl thinks of drawing directly onto her heel. But she abandons the idea, as that is forbidden. Now, Coco finds Agat's words starting to make sense. Anyone can draw magic, but not everyone can draw it well. Only special people can become witches. Compared to the three of them, she is just an amateur. A novice witch who doesn't know what to do. Since childhood, Coco has always been drawn to her mother's lines. That's why she started practicing alongside her. Those times were quite arduous. But thanks to those days of training, Coco's skills were perfected. Even Master Kifri acknowledged her as a skilled artisan. His praise helps Coco find clarity in the middle of the night. I have magic of my own, too. After picking up some stones that suit her, Coco wraps them in cloth and dabs a bit of ink on top. Her wet cloak has stiffened, making it a usable surface for drawing. Prepared, she sits down and gently draws a line. Maintaining her composure, she draws a straight line as if with her mother. The master once said we are often unsteady with new tools. Instead of making things difficult for herself, Coco chooses to turn it into something familiar, creating freely without being bound by rules. Once finished, she turns her cloak into a sail, excitedly showing it to the little Boushi, even if it isn't very pretty. Coco has learned her lesson from the first failure. Instead of following the standard, she draws a very long symbol. Seeing Boushi eagerly wanting to go with her, Coco tells it to hold on tight and picks up a stone. She gently draws one more stroke to activate the seal. Immediately, a strong wind hits the sail, sending the boat out of control. With no other choice, Coco can only cling tightly to the sail, watching her vessel plunge into the lake while she herself soars through the air. Coco's childhood dream has finally come true. For a moment, she sees her small house down below. Then she bursts into tears, realizing her mother's lessons apply to magic as well. Wiping away her tears, Coco continues flying to find the herb and finish the test. She can't stop, so she can only pluck it while gliding past, flying back and forth repeatedly to finally grab it. She must also stay alert to avoid obstacles. The fluttering cloak reminds Coco of the time she hid under the blankets. The hand her mother held back then was still so smooth. It might be callous now, but that doesn't matter. Coco will take responsibility for her actions. Please wait for me, mother. On her final attempt, the girl risks lowering herself to reach the herb. Upon learning Coco went to take the trial alone, Master Kifri can't believe she was so reckless. Coco hasn't been doing magic since childhood like them. If something happens, it's not just a little girl that's lost. Seeing Coco returning toward the gate, Tesha can't help but run up and hug her friend. Coco has gained the crown's consent and proven herself. But Agat says nothing and just heads to her room. Risking magic without preparation is extremely dangerous. One wrong move could cost a life at any moment. Seeing his student admit her mistake, Kifri simply smiles and lets it go. You don't need to risk yourself to prove anything. Because from now on, you are my apprentice. The gift Kifri gives Coco is a set of witch's robes. As long as you wear this, you won't forget the weight of magic. And the witch's hat will always watch over your magic. Take good care of it. Once the teacher finishes his instructions, Tesha runs over to drag Coco to dinner. Their happy life together continues, unaware of the scheme lurking behind. The seed he planted has already sprouted. Episode 4. Among the diverse forms of magic, first stand above all others. The earth sigil, with its power to shift and transform. The water sigil is used to nurture all things and control the source of life. Meanwhile, the fire sigil serves as both a sword and a shield for everyone. Finally, the flight sigil can carry knowledge beyond all limits. Witches refer to these four signs as the four great elements. After finishing the lesson, Master Kifri tells Coco to get her pen and paper to practice. She sits on the floor drawing with Tesha, accidentally starting a fire without even realizing it. Luckily, her friend quickly puts out the flames before a disaster can happen. Coco tries drawing a fire orb to practice flying, but it doesn't work. Master Kifri advises her to be careful since fire sigils are extremely dangerous. The reason Coco wants to learn to fly like Tesha is to repair a pair of shoes. She wants to fix Agat's broken shoes before returning them. Unfortunately, she's still not used to redrawing the seals. Her lines are shaky and uneven, so she hasn't been able to finish them yet. Master Kifri thinks that perhaps Coco isn't a good match for her current wand. Maybe you should try holding a few others to see which one fits, he suggests. Hearing this, Tesha excitedly invites Coco to a magic tool shop. Upon hearing that they sell all kinds of magical equipment, the girl gets overjoyed. It's just a shop, is there really a need to be that happy? First, the master and his 4 students fly to a town in the marsh forest. The island on the sand that Coco is looking at is the largest witch town in the region. There are many witches moving about everywhere. This area was originally just a watchtower built by witches to protect the town from cave dragons. But over time, it became a massive workshop for witches. Agathe doesn't want to go sightseeing with Coco, so she splits off from the group. This makes Coco feel incredibly awkward. It's clear that the relationship between the two still isn't very good. The market Coco visits has many unique and strange stalls. Everything is so magical, it feels like a dream. Along the way, she gets dazed and drawn to something in an alleyway. If the group hadn't called her, she probably would have stood there all day. Their destination is a shop called Star Sword. Inside the shop, there is a tree arranged in a very unique way. The shopkeeper finds it strange that a witch apprentice is surprised by a silverwood tree. Don't you even know the basics, child? But once he realizes she's Kifri's new apprentice, the old man immediately apologizes and recognizes Coco's identity. This old man is the owner of the Star Sword Magic Shop. Everything here is crafted by him and his grandson. Wands or ink, we have it all. We can even extract ink at any level of density. Since Coco is a beginner and knows nothing, the owner calls her upstairs for an introduction. Up there, a young boy is intently peeling tree bark to make a wand. His hand movements are incredibly meticulous. First, the old man cuts a branch and places it in a test tube. The black liquid that dissolves in the water is called bloodwood. When the branch is healthy, it is silver white. But when it withers, it turns black. In this state, it's toxic to both plants and humans. But after boiling and straining the liquid, it becomes the source of magic. Ordinary ink is usually made from the soot of burnt wood. But magic ink is made from the blood of the tree trunk. That's why the silverwood tree is so special to witches. Strangely, you can't get it from any other kind of tree. Legend has it that long ago, a silverwood tree fell in love with a witch. It offered its blood for magic ink and its branches for wands. Since this is Coco's first time at the shop, he gives her a bottle of ink as a gift. I hope you'll find the perfect wand for yourself. Hearing this, Coco excitedly runs downstairs to pick out what she likes. And that's when the girl spots a mysterious witch. Without hesitation, she immediately runs outside to chase after them. Her 2 friends, fearing Coco will get lost alone, quickly follow behind. By chance, Agathe is also there picking out shoes when she's bumped into by the protagonist. Before she can understand what's happening, she's grabbed by the other 2 and pulled along. The 4 girls rush into an alley just to catch that suspicious witch. Absorbed in the chase, the girls suddenly vanish before the eyes of a little brush. By the time Agathe pulls them to a stop, the whole group is lost somewhere. The place where the group is standing is very unusual. A witch town shouldn't have white stone walls like these. The more they think about it, the more wrong it feels, as they hadn't passed through any windows. Tesha flies up to get a better look. There's a high chance they were teleported here without even realizing it. The opponent used forbidden magic to bring the group into another dimension. When she descends, Tesha frantically tries to find a way out of there. She keeps rambling about something terrifying. To welcome Coco to the world of magic. The mysterious witch doesn't hesitate to summon someone, the very thing Tesha saw. A moment later, Master Kifri returns to the shop and gets worried when he doesn't see the girls. They wouldn't just wander off because they were bored. There's no shop in town more interesting than this one. Besides, they aren't the type of girls to leave without thanking the owner. Just then, Tarta notices them running after a strange-looking witch. The mention of a figure wearing an eyeball mask makes Kifri freeze. Facing a ferocious dragon threatening the whole group, Agathe whispers in Coco's ear, telling her to slowly back away and not take her eyes off it. Wait for my signal, then we'll run. Saying that, the whole group anxiously retreats step by step. They try to keep their distance and then run for their lives. The dragon, seeing this, goes into a frenzy and chases after them. But as it gets close, it's scorched by Agathe's flames. This creates an opportunity for everyone to run and find a place to hide. Agathe was able to draw so quickly because she was prepared. She always keeps a few sigils ready in her notebook for emergencies. Just one more stroke and the spell activates immediately. Despite the danger, Coco keeps expressing her admiration for the other girl. After moving for a while, the group unfortunately hits a dead end. The dragon continues to loiter around, terrifying Tesha. She doesn't want to perish before leaving a mark on the world of magic. She then turns a reproachful gaze toward Coco, making the atmosphere suffocating. Hearing this, Agathe reassures them that they'll use magic to escape. I'll use a wall-breaking spell to create a hole, while Tesha and Recap buy us time with their sigils. Coco knows that the look from earlier was a silent accusation. Right now, she can't do anything but watch them. After some effort, Tesha finally creates a flying cloak. She uses it to distract the dragon while Agat draws her sigil. Inadvertently, Coco discovers an intricate sigil on the wall. She tries to ask Agat about it, but causes her to slip and miss a stroke. Unable to contain her frustration, Agat takes her anger out on Coco. You turned your mother to stone and now you've dragged us into danger. This is all your fault. If you can't help, at least stay out of the way. Just when it seems things have reached a standstill, Recap finishes her sigil. It creates a hole just large enough for the group to escape. Agat calms down a bit after seeing that. She tells Coco to leave, then acts like she didn't say anything. Think whatever you want, I don't care. Hearing this, Coco dejectedly picks up her hat and leans her head against it. What should I do, Master Kifri? Meanwhile, Master Kifri is still searching for his students' whereabouts. He didn't expect the brimmed hats to be this bold. They are a group of extremely dangerous witches who specialize in forbidden magic. Initially, Kifri thought Coco could give him clues about them, but he didn't expect them to come directly and take the whole group away. Tarda only caught a glimpse of them running off and doesn't know anything else. Just as things seem hopeless, the little brush suddenly returns. It knows where Coco's group disappeared and wants to show Kifri the way. With time running out, the two must act quickly.